Well, today I'm pleased to welcome Tom Ricci, who's the principal and founding partner at Coretrust Capital Partners, a real estate investment firm, along with Peter Henson, who's a consultant and the CEO of Allynt Solutions. Hello, Tom and Peter.
Hello, Jeff.
Jeff,
good
hi.
to be with you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us to discuss some recent accomplishments for your organization, the GBAC STAR Accreditation Program for accreditation for facilities. And we're looking at this from two different angles, I believe. Tom, it's your company that received accreditation, but Peter was instrumental in making that happen. So we're going to go down this journey and tell the story. So let's start with you, Peter. What did you do for Tom's company when it came to GBAC STAR?
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks for having us on. So Allynt Solutions is a consultant firm that specializes in creating clean, healthy interior environments in commercial buildings, and we do that through a variety of means. Tom and I were introduced to each other because of the value proposition that our company has and the goals that Coretrust was trying to accomplish. And so Tom and I started having some conversations, and we aligned physically that we wanted to create as healthy an environment as possible, given the circumstances that we were in with the pandemic. And so we began that process about a year ago, and it's taken us all the way to fruition with having three of his portfolio properties GBAC accredited.
So not just one building, not just two buildings, Tom, you've got three.
Correct.
Can you tell us about those?
Yes. So Coretrust Capital Partners is a real estate owner, investor, operator nationally. We have about 4 million square feet under ownership and operation. And the three buildings that we embarked on this process, this journey on, 2LP, 2 Liberty Place in Philadelphia, is a 58-story, 1 million square foot building. And 444 South Flower in Los Angeles is a 48-story, 915,000 square foot building. The third property is Paso Royo. That's a suburban corporate campus in Pasadena, California. It's slightly different than the other two properties. That is 650,000 square feet of office on a 6-acre property spread amongst 4 buildings with subterranean parking. Just to be clear, we have received GBAC STAR certification on 2 Liberty Place and 444, and our application is in and being reviewed currently right now on Paso Royo. We elected to approach our entire portfolio with the mindset of what can we do to create as healthy and safe an environment to give our employers and thus their employees the confidence that they can return to the workplace. And Peter's role in that and Allynt Solutions' role in that was instrumental, coupled with all of the other things that we've done to the properties since the start of the pandemic. I would point out that historically, and with our current portfolio, we've operated in what I would consider to be a Class A office type of asset class. So we've always maintained and operated our buildings at a very high level of tenant customer satisfaction. We've made capital improvements into the assets over the years, focusing on energy efficiency, health and wellness, customer service, amenitizing the assets. But the pandemic really took us to a new level. And it was something that historically we had assumed we were accomplishing great things, but we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was vetted by agencies and groups that were objective and independent. And that led us to Allynt Solutions coming in to evaluate how we were doing on one of the, I would consider to say the 3-legged stool. So cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting being one approach, indoor air quality and indoor water quality, ultimately indoor environmental quality, and then how we were doing in terms of HVAC, air filtration, and things that were definitely associated with the virus itself. And so Allynt led us to ISSA and GBAC STAR. And once I learned more about that organization, I was fully committed to submit our properties as a consideration for ISSA for GBAC STAR accreditation, because I felt that that was a standard that would resonate strongly with our customers. And that's really what we're in the business of doing, is providing an environment for people to do what they do for a living. I can't stress it enough that the most valuable assets we have are not our buildings. It's the people that come to our buildings each and every day. They have a choice. They can go to our buildings or they can go somewhere else. And my goal is to make them want to continue to come back each and every day.
So, Peter, you were instrumental in bringing GBAC as a solution to Tom. Did you have to twist his arm much?
Not at all. I had to keep up with Tom's energy and passion for the project. And he's got a wonderful team of senior leadership in each facility too, that was equally passionate to deliver that environment for their stakeholders. And so by creating this baseline that we were able to do, so our process was to do a complete infection prevention audit of the facility, which involved looking at CDC recommendations, are they being compliant, looking at all OSHA requirements. And then to Tom's credit, they are two of the three buildings are currently, both Paso Arroyo and 444 are U.S. Green Building Council gold level LEED buildings, with 2 Liberty currently in that process now. How to combine sustainable cleaning with infection prevention is truly an art. There's the science, right? But we need the art to do it. And one of the things that we've observed, I've been in the cleaning industry 35 years, is people are trying to create that environment. And like so many of us, we think more is better, right? So when the pandemic hit, oh, we're just going to disinfect everything. We're going to spray it. But I think we all know as cleaning industry veterans that in this situation, more is not necessarily better, because at the end of the day, disinfectants are pesticides. And if applied incorrectly, we can sometimes be creating more hazards than remediating hazards, right? And so Tom was very interested in making sure, like he said earlier, hey, I need to know, is what is happening in my building, is what I'm being told happening in my building really happening in my building? And if it's not, that's okay, but let's just figure it out so that we can make sure that we implement the correct processes, procedures. And then through that directive, we created a standardization we rewrote the cleaning specifications. We actually specified safer chemistry, which is, chemistry has been updated, tools and accessories have been updated. So by complying and looking at what both ISSA through GBAC, and by the way, through SIMS, get a plug in, talking about cleaning industry management standard, using those and creating a total quality master cleaning plan, and then working with the different all 3 different contractors and all 3 properties to implement that. It's been a terrific experience for all of us.
Let me ask you this, both either one of you can answer. So your buildings are in excellent condition, they're top notch, they're Class A. Was there anything, if I'm saying that right, is there anything that you had to adjust or change because of your GBAC STAR accreditation?
Well, I guess I'll take a stab at that one. So first of all, I think Peter's point that our property management teams really did an excellent job responding to the requirements for GBAC STAR. This was on the heels of US GBC LEED Gold certification for 2 of the properties, as well as the 3rd property, which we're hopefully a week or 2 away from receiving. In addition to that, we went through an extensive process with UL for their Tier 2 certification. So on what used to be Underwriter Laboratories, now known as UL. We were the first 3 office buildings globally, this is according to them, to receive Tier 2 certification, which is indoor air and indoor water quality, which is important because office buildings left unoccupied become breeding grounds for all sorts of things, not just the coronavirus. The fact that we kept all buildings operational, we didn't lay off any staff. We ran the buildings because we had essential workers in the buildings. Our tenants are essential workers. We can't make that decision for them. So we felt it was important to make sure that our indoor environmental quality was not degraded as a result of the pandemic and maybe lesser occupancy. That process in and of itself was a heavy lift. And then coupled with that, we went ahead and pursued GBAC STAR. And then finally, all three buildings right now, the applications are in for well building health and safety. And it was very important for us, for USGBC, UL, ISSA, GBAC STAR, and well building, that these are all outside agencies that come in and validate what we're doing. It's not the landlord or the owner saying we're doing these things. We're giving our tenants and our customers and our staff the knowledge that we're being validated by outside agencies, that they're the experts in the field. What GBAC STAR did change for us was it caused us to take a hard look at each of our janitorial contractors, which we outsourced that service to. And in the past, historically, we didn't really have anyone on staff with someone like Peter and his team and their credentials. I mean, I refer to Allynt Solutions as scientist, virologist, and epidemiologist. And they have more credentials after their names, and I have no idea what they stand for, but it's very impressive. To have them come in and help us and be an advocate for the owner, to challenge what our janitorial contractors are telling us, the products that they're using, the safety and efficacy of those products, not only on our staff, but on our customers, and how those products work in conjunction with the other things that we've done. So the one thing that we were missing, I felt, in terms of a holistic and rapid response to the pandemic, we did things to the buildings that I'm not aware of any other landlord that's done in the cumulative sense. So we went to a touchless experience throughout at all of the properties, including restrooms and entranceways and things like that. We, at all three properties, were one of the first office building owners nationally to install a UVC, ultraviolet C wavelength germicidal irradiation lamps inside of our ductwork at all three properties. We upgraded our MERV filters to 13, 14, or 15, whatever the maximum our HVAC systems could accept. We purchased UVC GI robots at all three properties, so that not only inside the ductwork, we could roll these around and disinfect tenant suites, high occupancy areas. We installed destination dispatch, touchless elevator controls, and a touchless tenant visitor system. We are also one of the first landlords nationally to work with three different elevator manufacturers, Fujitec in Philly, Mitsubishi Electronics in Pasadena, and Otis Elevators in Los Angeles, to install in elevator cab air purification through bipolar ionization. So we tried to address all of the areas that tenants have a concern about returning to the workplace. The one area I felt that we weren't, I couldn't say with 100% certainty that we had done everything, was how were we cleaning, how were we sanitizing, and how were we disinfecting? I was disinfecting the air through UV and other means, but how was I ultimately, the touch points, the things that UV light couldn't reach, bipolar ionization couldn't get to? I mean, we were fogging and doing all of those other things, but I really needed an expert to say, I needed to keep my janitorial contractors honest and push them to think outside of the box, that this was not just standard operating procedure, that we were in a new era, a new dawn, and we needed to respond to that. Peter's group, Allynt Solutions, and the process we went through with GBAC STAR gave us that push. It gave us that confidence that we could challenge the janitorial contractors in a way that they had never been challenged before in an office building environment. I know that GBAC STAR is very popular in high occupancy areas, in arenas and hotels and casinos and assembly halls and convention centers and things like that. And actually, I've mentioned this to Peter in the past. I live in Dallas now. I used to live in Los Angeles, so I'm traveling quite a bit back and forth to Philadelphia and Los Angeles. And while sitting in the Dallas airport at DFW, I noticed one of the monitors came on with the GBAC STAR certification. I was like, this is fantastic. I'm not quite sure how many people know what GBAC STAR is yet, but by darn, we're going to go for it. And we're not going to stop until we get it. And that wouldn't have been possible without Allynt Solutions and Peter's help and the knowledge that we gained from the fact that there is this surface role out there. It's not just viral through atomization, but it's tangible touch points that now I feel that we do have a complete approach to this. It's not just air, it's not just water, it's not just UV, it's not just bipolar ionization. It's products, it's policy, it's procedure, it's safety, it's efficacy, it's all of that. And that was the other thing. I mean, our janitorial contractors would give us this product, they would give us this product. We did not have a standardized approach across our portfolio. Now we do. And now I feel comfortable that all of our properties are on the same equal footing. And as a landlord and an owner, on behalf of our customers and our investors, I think we've done cumulatively as much as we can possibly do. I'm not aware of any other thing out there that we can do that would affect the environment, the overall indoor environmental quality environment that we're trying to create for our tenants.
Well, it sounds like a great partnership you both have coming together and making all this happen with GBAC as one of the solutions. You've done a lot of work for your buildings and for your people for the pandemic. Let's talk about after the pandemic, because one day this will end. What does this mean for you after the pandemic is over, the GBAC STAR accreditation?
Well, for me, it means that it gives us something that we can maintain year in and year out. First of all, I don't think the lasting effects of the pandemic are tenant awareness. And whether it's coronavirus, whether it's MERS or SARS or the flu or whatever it is, I think tenants and our customers have a new understanding of how healthy is the environment that they're entering into. So for us, creating what I would consider to be best in class environment, the ratings, the certifications, the accreditations that we're going for, to me, they don't have a shelf life. They're infinite. Year after year, whatever we have to do to maintain, to improve, we're going to be focused on, because it's good business. It's one thing to build quality in materials. It's another thing to maintain quality in operational aspects. And for us to compete in the markets we compete in, we're assets that are trophy class A assets competing for top of market rents with institutional tenants that are, credit worthy tenants that expect this. This is something we're committed to. So for us, the relationship with Allynt is, well, it's new. To me, it's a long-term relationship, and the relationship with ISSA and GBAC STAR, it's just starting, and it will be something we continue to do each year. And if we can bring our janitorial contractors along in the process, all the better.
And if I could add to that, Jeff, when we did, the one thing that the collaborative approach that Tom took and charged us at Allynt with was, we all know the challenges the pandemic has had throughout supply chain. It's very difficult to get materials. It's also, so one of the things that we did is when we challenged the contractor, it's the challenge to be better. And it's the challenge to say, and all these buildings looked fantastic, right? They scored very, very high they got A or A plus rated on their appearance. And what we were able to work with them is tweak that a little bit, but really look at what's underneath the appearance, because today we need to clean for health and safety and wellness, and to create that indoor environmental quality that Tom referenced. And so the beautiful thing about what we did in working with Coretrust was working with the supply chain. So working with the contractor to say, hey, here's how we might, Kaizen, continuous improvement. Here's another idea about how to achieve the result that, in this case, Coretrust is looking for, and then backing it into the distribution network, which is critically important, and then backing that into the manufacturer segment of our industry to say, can we supply these products, right? So do we have enough cleaner, sanitizer, disinfectant, tools, accessories to create this environment? Because if we can specify something to get to a particular result, but if our supply chain, if the other partners in the ISSA industry, the manufacturers, the distributor, and the contract themselves can't access that and then can't deliver that, it's what we call leading someone into the desert, right? We don't want to do that. We want to, and Tom and I spent a lot of time going through different, whether it was aqueous ozone or settling in on basically a hydrogen peroxide solution as a standardization for the buildings. That's what we did. And so the wonderful thing about this is that we've been able to tie all partners in the ISSA industry together, all the channel participants into a solution. And we think we're, with Tom, Tom's ideas and our ability to take those and implement them, we've created a blueprint for all channel partners to work together to beat this pandemic.
I think the other thing, and I would just add, Jeff, is Peter's group was very focused on safety as well as efficacy, but safety of our staff that is ultimately the frontline worker who's responsible for the cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. And so our review of products and policies and procedures, it was very important because our janitorial team has been with us for years, and in some instances, decades associated with the asset. And the fact that no one was laid off, the fact that they came in and worked every day on the assets during the last 17 months meant something to us, and it meant something to them. So their safety was very important, as well as the safety of our tenants, but the people that are ultimately implementing the product. Also, the waste stream of the products we were using was important, and that's something Allynt brought us into, and it was something that, again, we learned about through GBAC STAR and this, sort of hand-in-hand approach. And then finally, the other thing that I think was really helpful for us with Allynt was they didn't ignore all of the other improvements we made to the building. They looked at how those things like UVC GI and MERV filters and the other things that we had been doing, how did they work hand in hand with overhauling our janitorial process? And then Peter's group came in very early on and evaluated how our janitorial contractors were doing. And I'm happy to hear him say that we were A or A plus, but there were a few things that he recommended we could do better, which we did. And then it was through that process that I said, you know what, I don't like the fact that we have 3 different approaches. Let's go for this overhaul. And at the same time, let's go for GBAC, and let's combine this as a focused effort. And it really has turned out, it's exceeded my expectations in terms of how it has positively affected our assets.
And last, real quick, just to add to that, talk about Tom's role to partnership, because it is exciting. We get a little excited about and passionate. My wife laughs at me, right? But when we developed something, we then brought it to one of their partner, long-term partners, the contractor of the Arthur Jackson Company in Philadelphia, which is a premier services provider. And we were able to implement and work with their leadership and ownership to say, hey, what about this? What about that? And they're like, yeah, great. So they were totally collaborative in finding the solution. And then we were able to put it in a beta test in effect, try it out, test run it, and now take it back through the rest of the portfolio as a result. So It's important to know that it's just not us or Coretrust. Again, it's all the industry working together, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. So my last question is, in your networking, If another organization like yours were to ask, should they obtain GBAC STAR accreditation, what would you say to them?
Without a doubt. Absolutely. Everybody, as far as I'm concerned, everybody should pursue it. Because for two reasons. One, it's the right thing to do. Two, I think it brings notoriety and familiarity to ISSA and to what GBAC STAR accreditation means. Our tenants understand things like the U.S. Green Building Council just because it's been around now for approaching 25 years. They understand Underwriter Labs, although Underwriter Labs is now going by UL, so they don't really know what that means yet, but they're learning it. To me, we advertise our GBAC STAR accreditation to our tenants in newsletters, in email, in monitor throughout the properties, in elevator cabs, through decals. So it's that type of knowledge that once employers and employees recognize this facility has a GBAC STAR, again, it's one thing to be environmentally sustainable and energy efficient, but Global Biorisk Advisory Council STAR accreditation is focusing right in on things like viral transmission and sick building syndrome. These are things that tenants kind of hear about and then they forget, and then they hear about it. I don't think they're going to forget this time. So for me, having someone with Peter's experience and his team help us through this process, having gone through it on our own without that assistance, I would maybe feel a little differently because it is a heavy lift. And it does require a different approach. You do have to take you do have to be willing to reinvent yourself a little to go down this path, and to allow outside, independent, objective experts, organizations come into your facility and rate you. It's a humbling experience, but you, as an owner and as an operator, as an investor, we welcome that scrutiny, because we're not going to hide behind anything. We're going to put it out there, and it's important for our tenants to understand the importance of what we're doing and the importance that lies behind these accreditations and certifications. So I would say, without a doubt, I would recommend it highly to other owners.